Hey, it's Chuck Armstrong with Loudwire Nights, and this is Loudwire Nights On Demand. It is always a treat to catch up with Zoltan Bathory, founding member of Five Finger Death Punch, but especially so when we're talking about new music and when that new music features DMX. This first aired on Friday, April 5th. Enjoy. Man, it's Friday night, and we are celebrating new music, and I'm just going to get right into it. The founder and the guitarist for the one and only Five Finger Death Punch, Mr. Zoltan Bathory, is our very, very special guest tonight. Zoltan, it's so good to see you, man.
Same here, my brother. Glad to be here. Me and the pineapple, man. We are present.
That's right, man. Yeah, two special guests.
Right.
Listen, last time you were hanging with us on Loudwire Nights, we were talking all about your new character on Call of Duty. And so before we get too far into this new music I want to talk about, it's been like 6 months, I think, since that character was revealed. How has life been being an international video game star?
It's interesting when people come up to me to take a picture, and I have to kind of figure it out, like band, Call of Duty, or Jiu-Jitsu. Because, I have different it does happen. So there was a funny event. We just played the show with Metallica, right? And after that, there was this big chat, this conversation online. And I read one of these comments, and the guy goes, "Hey, man, I just went to see Metallica, and Call of Duty guy was on stage." So it happens. It's kind of funny. But hey, man, that's the whole idea. You just shoot in all direction, man. I love the fact that I can live a life where I have multiple verticals, multiple avenues, multiple things I'm passionate about doing.
Yeah, man. I mean, you're multi-talented, right? You've got all these different things going, and it's great. You open up new avenues for new audiences, and you think that maybe someone playing of Call of Duty might now become a Five Finger fan or might get interested in jiu-jitsu. Yes. Like, that's not a bad thing, man.
Right. Yeah, cross-pollinating. But it's like the music is always my main thing, that's what I do. Like everything else is kind of adds to it or it's peripheral compared, this is what I do. And I'm not necessarily doing it to cross-pollinate, so to speak. That's a side effect, right? I actually like doing the stuff. I mean, I love martial arts. I love certain things. I run various companies. I love the chess game of life that, okay, I can do this, I can do that, So that's exciting to me. I also race monster trucks. And I mean, I do a lot of crazy shit. Just because why not?
I love it, man. Is there anything out there that you're still wanting to accomplish or wanting to tackle?
Yes. So in our lifetimes, if we are keep ourselves healthy and don't get into crazy shit, then in our lifetimes there will be a time where people can become astronauts, civilians, right? And you can possibly go to space. Maybe I'm going to go to the stretch that maybe even there will be because I know that space hotels are already building. That might be even a time that depends how much, how long we live, but could be moon bases, could be those things built and available for not just research, but civilians. And that's one more thing that I definitely want to get my astronaut wings. I fly airplanes, I flew fighter jets and all that.
Right.
You know what I mean? But that's still on the bucket list.
That's great, man. That's quite the bucket list, man. I love it. So let's get into this new music, man. Earlier this year, it was announced that Five Finger was going to release the deluxe edition of Afterlife, the album that came out in 2022. Here we are tonight celebrating the release. How's it feel? Like, the album came out a couple years ago. Now the deluxe edition's out. How are you feeling right now?
So number one is that obviously the big news is that the song the collaboration with DMX. That's the big news on the album, and the reason that this deluxe edition even exists because we recorded that song and it was supposed to be on this album, right? It was supposed to be on this album, but in a collaboration, especially because DMX passed, there are so many people, producers, record labels, publishers, there's so many people are involved. Everybody has to give it a green light. And as we were going through that process, we realized, man, this might take a long time to do this. And we can't just sit on the record. We recorded an album and probably sat on it like maybe 5 months while we're doing this process. And after 5 months, like, you know what, let's just put it out. and then we deal with it when we deal with it. And so the finishing of the record, usually when you finish a record, you immediately go and you start to drop the singles and you release the record, because you don't want the record to leak. Because for manufacturing, it generally leaks. And it kind of did, So the record kind of leaked, and we were like, we can't sit on this too long. And so I ended up releasing it without this track. And then finally, it took us months and months and months after the record came out, when finally this song was cleared by all the publishers and everyone involved, and we were like, okay, now we can put it out. So that's how we were like, okay, let's set up the deluxe edition, put the song on. So now the record is as it's supposed to be. And then also, this is the way how it was supposed to be, to pun intended, right? Yeah. And then we throw in a couple of acoustic versions of songs that we did, and so to make it up to the deluxe. So it's more interesting.
Does it feel like almost like a sense of closure with this album? Like it came out, but it's been a couple of years since it's actually completed.
Yes, it never felt whole, because that song, when you make an album, it's kind of like when at least how we do it. When we record an album, there is an understanding of flow, right? Like there is a moment where, okay, I'm looking at the album, what we have so far, and then I'm like, okay, you know what? It needs a couple of fast songs. That it's too mid-tempo, or it's too slow. So we're gonna have to throw in a couple of mid-tempo songs here, maybe some higher tempo songs here to pick out the pace. Or it's all angry. We need to do a couple of smoother stuff. So there's a flow of song. Yeah. So every song on the record has a reason to be there, right? Not just from the perspective of this song means something, but from the perspective as an album, same with a live set. There's a reason why what's where. You can start a live set with a ballad, right?
Right.
So there is certain spots of what you put where. And so this record never felt complete, because one of the songs that was important, one of the most important songs actually on the record, had a spot and it wasn't there. So it always felt a little bit like, man, you're missing something here. You're missing that song. So yes, from that perspective, it's definitely a closure, because we completed the record how it was meant to be.
So can you talk a little bit about how this collaboration came to be?
Yes. So if you look at DMX, we have very eclectic tastes. Like I listen to hip hop beats. Generally, when I start writing songs, I always start with a hip hop beat or an African beat or something. I don't write on rock beats, because I like the swing, the sway of those beats. Back in the days, I used to sample stuff from old Motown records, right? Like literally, I would sample the beat, throw it into an MPC, MPC 2000 or an Akai 1000. Sometimes I would push it through like a preamp to make it dirtier, and and I would write on those, because that excites me. It's different, right? So I was always a fan of that, and there are various hip hop groups and artists that I really really like, and DMX was one of them, and it was somebody that Ivan also we shared that. Ivan loves DMX and his music, and so there was a conversation maybe like 5 years ago, somewhere in there, 5-6 years ago, where you're like, who would be cool if you could work with DMX? Because he's kind of like the metalhead of hip hop, the dog park, the delivery. There's that.
He's angry and he's intense.
Yeah. So I'm like, man, this would be like, if there's a hip hop guy that he's one of the guys that definitely fit the vibe. Yeah. So this conversation of, hey, we would like to work with DMX started like literally 5-6 years ago. And this conversation was going on, and, he wasn't available you can research it why, but, he wasn't available. We couldn't work with him. And then when he was available, unfortunately it was short-lived, he passed. And so we were in a situation that by this time, this conversation was deeper, that we already had the convo like, okay, let's do something. And then he passed. And then we were in a weird situation that we want to be respectful, obviously, but we still want to have this check mark on a bucket list. We still want to do this. Yeah. And how do we make this happen? How we stay respectful? How do we, how we still pull this off? And what happened, eventually we got an opportunity that some of his master recordings, we got a green light on that. Like, okay, we can use these verses, these lyrics, right? So we had the masters, and we basically reverse engineered it, that there was music under it. We took off the music and write new music under it, and then sort of melted it with with our style and song. Yeah, so it became a collaboration that way.
Wow, that's powerful, man. Yeah, I mean, that's all the back and forth and trying to make this happen, and then seeing it kind of come to an end.
Right.
Sadly.
Yeah, we didn't give up on it. And then once, that was a process. And once the song was done, then started a new process. Like when we want to put it out, everybody wanted to hear it. Like, okay, he passed. So, he's an important artist. There's a serious legacy there. And everybody, every producer, every single person that was ever involved in those tracks and his art had to sign off and give us a green light. And that was a really interesting process, because once they heard the song, everyone was like, oh, yeah, hell yeah, this is special. This is amazing, right? So, but it still took time. And that's why I told you, like, we couldn't just sit for another year and go to the entire process. We released the record, and we figured, like, eventually, when everybody signs off on it, then we'll release it one way or another, right?
Yeah.
And one of the funniest, one of the amazing ones to me was Hype Williams. Because Hype Williams is a video director, a visual artist who was responsible. He had a huge hand in hip-hop culture exploding in the 90s. And if you start looking at videos, probably the videos you saw on MTV, your favorite hip-hop video, probably he directed them.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. If you start to see what he did, it's insane. There was a waiting list for sometimes over a year for him to direct or work with you. He was a legend. He's still a legend. And so when we were thinking about, like, how are we going to make a video for this song, right? Like, again, DMX is not here anymore, and how are we going to do this?
Yeah.
And so there was the idea, well, let's talk to Hype. Hype was a good friend of DMX, very close, DMX was in the movie Ballet, which Hype directed, and so they were very close, and in some way Hype found him and was partially responsible for DMX's career. So they were really close. So we're like, you know what? Let's talk to Hype and let's see what he thinks and how this could be possible. And I sent him the song, and I think the song is like 3 minutes, 20 seconds. He called me 3 minutes, 21 seconds. I mean, like, I know that he had just enough time to listen to it, right? That I appreciate that. Thank you, Hype. Because, man, he called me immediately and he was like, dude, I have to direct this video. He's like, look, you don't understand how close we were. He's my brother. I had his career. I find him. I put him in a movie. He was very close to me. I worked on his video. I want to be the guy. And this might be the last thing that we're going to ever hear from him. And so for me, this both emotionally and in every single way, I have to do this video. So he was not 150% in, like, I'm doing this. I'm coming to Vegas now. I'm doing this. And so I really appreciated that, man, because he's a legend, and he was like, you guys don't even know what you're sitting on. Some of his best lyrics. The song is incredible. I gotta be part of this.
Well, and I love just how respectful you guys were throughout this whole process, right? You could have pushed to release this, obviously you had to go through all the process, but you could have just, for yourselves, to check that box.
Right.
But you did it the right way. You respected the legacy of DMX. And now even with the music video, like, nobody else could direct the music video, right?
Right.
It could only be
hot. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that, man. Yeah. And there is something special about D, man. Like you said, he's like the most metal rapper. And for me, like, I think about, this white kid growing up in the Midwest and growing up a rock guy and a metal guy. I had every DMX CD, man. Like, there was just something about him that I connected with him just as much as I connected with the rock and metal that I was listening to.
Right. Yeah, so then you understand exactly what I'm saying. Like, he was sort of, even if you're a metalhead, you had to respect him. You have to be like, oh, okay, in some way you're one of us, right? And there's just so many songs. Like, one of my favorite songs is "The Rain."
Yeah,
incredible track,
Absolutely.
man. If I there's a lot, but and then hear the mixtapes and I have all the compilations, and it was pretty funny because, again, it's like people would not necessarily know what kind of we're a heavy metal hard rock band, but if people would check what I'm listening to, you would be very surprised, and like, I would crank DMX, and Ivan too, man, he's cranking the hell out of it. So people would be surprised what kind of, I think that's one of the things with Five Finger Death Punch is that, we were always that both a gatekeeper band, some are hovering between metal and hard rock, a lot of people get into metal because of us, right?
Yeah.
And I think one of the reason that just the general population, who not necessarily metal, had also sort vibe with Five Finger Death Punch is because our eclectic, taste. That that where that this music coming from, what kind of influences we have is definitely there.
Well, and last time you were on the show, we talked about that, exactly that, because, you guys have taken country artists on the road. Like you have done what you can to keep those gates open and to invite more and more people. And so here we are, not talking about country, but talking about, DMX being on a Five Finger track. And so again, like those gates open just a little bit wider to maybe invite more people into the rock community. And I don't think there's anything better than that, man.
I think sort of the industry, so to speak. If I speak about industry in terms of, when you walked in the record store back in the days, right? There were sections: pop, rock, metal, extreme metal, right? And then eventually that even fragmented even to more and more subgenres. There are when you talk about metal, it's actually ridiculous, like snowcore. I mean, what the hell is snowcore? I mean, just the weirdest freaking subgenres, right? And so it fractured to the point where it's the boundaries between genres. I think once there is so many, it ceased to exist, right? When an object falls, an object is an object, but it falls apart to its atoms because there's, what I mean? Like you talk about the subparticles, then eventually it's like, it doesn't even exist. It's just vibration, right?
That's right.
And so, you know what I mean? So the kind of thing is like that. I think what happened that the genres fragmented to the point where they disappeared, right? And with that, I think music became universal. And how you find music today, is it still there? Are there still these genres? Is it any one of us own a genre? I don't think so.
Well, and like we talked about at the beginning too, like how do people find music? I mean, legit, they might find it because they're playing Call of Duty, which is totally different than when we were growing up, to have that sort of access to different mediums with different soundtracks and different songs on it.
But you also had curators. Let's say, for example, you were listening to a rock radio. Then the curators were the DJs, obviously, playing the kind of things they liked, right? Or you were watching MTV, and then there were, there was Headbangers Ball, and there was various segments of, MTV, and you would, watch that. And that also disappeared. So you're going to run into a song on TikTok, right? So it's not like you find this song on TikTok because you were looking for a specific genre. You were just scrolling through some videos and you hear something like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then you look up who's the artist. So even the way you find music these days is very different. So that means to me that I don't have to play this game. I don't want to. I never really did. I don't have to play this game like, well, we are metal and therefore we are here and this is all we can do. And here are the boundaries. I can't step over the bound down to the thing like, we get this criticism like we don't look like a metalhead. Like I don't dress like a metalhead. Like, okay, you know what I mean? That's your, like now be a fashion freaking police now, right? So, so that kind of stuff always I thought it's ridiculous. But, we both how we look like, what we do, my interest, everything I do, right? The music, those boundaries are, I think, is obsolete to the point that, tell you the truth, don't be surprised if in the near future you start to see collaborations with the weirdest artists that we can possibly collaborate with, because I'm interested in doing that. So is Ivan. Like what? Who would be cool? This is how it comes out. Like, we're sitting around, Ivan goes, man, I really like this song, Blue and Black. And I wasn't familiar with the song, right? I'm like, okay, well, play it to me. Yeah, dude, this is cool. This is cool. And it's like, yeah, it's Candy Wayne Shepherd. I really like the song. Let's redo this song. I'm like, okay. So we do the song, and then he goes, you know what would be cool? We should send it to Kenny, like what he thinks of it. And, it's his song. Imagine when Candy Wayne Shepherd, the guy who wrote this song, goes, man, I want to be part of this. And he ended up singing and playing guitar on his own song that we remade. Right? And then Bentley Gilbert is like a country artist. Like, he's like, oh, this is cool, because they were working in the same studio. Like, I want to do this. So he jumps in, and then Brian May from, Brian freaking May, legend, right? Yeah. He hears about this. He's working in the studio, and he's like, oh, I want to play on that. Now, that is magic. You know what I mean? Like you have Bentley Gilbert, Candy Wayne Shepherd, on a Candy Wayne Shepherd song, Brian May and Five Finger Death Punch doing a song, right? That is magic. And so I'm
So when
looking
you
forward
say
to
when you say when you say to fans, don't be surprised when you see this happen, does that mean
right.
you got some stuff in the works?
That means that we're talking about some crazy stuff. Like,
Awesome.
man, you know what would be? It's always started with this. Like, we're sitting around and somebody goes, you know what would be cool and weird in the same time? And then it happens.
That's a good Venn diagram. It's got to be cool.
Right.
Also got to be kind of weird. Yeah.
Right.
All right. Last question, man. Last year was big for you, not just because of the video game, but you guys toured with Metallica for a bit, right? You opened on that big circle stage all over. I got to catch you at a few shows, man. It was just incredible to see you. And I think when you were on the show, it was right before you guys started. And I think there were a little nerves with you guys, like what it was going to be like playing the stage. You got some more shows coming up this year, but you've got a year under your belt now. So how are you feeling getting ready for the tour with Metallica?
So that was a very interesting little process because, we never crossed paths with Metallica before we played with them in Germany. And we were backstage, we were talking to Lars, and Lars was saying like, yeah, that's so weird because we are in like next year gonna be 20 years. In 19 years, that part started 05, first record 07. So, in 20 years, and those guys are around for 40, right? And so we had this conversation backstage, and Lars was like, man, if you look at the Billboard charts or the end of the year charts, like we always neck to neck, and it's all the same charts and the same, but we never crossed paths. How weird! And he was kind of joking, like, let's do something. Let's not wait another 40 years to do something, right? And it was kind of somewhat unexpected. A couple of months later, we do get a phone call like, hey, this is the reality. Let's do this, right? And everybody was super excited. And then we got the stage plot. That's what you're talking about. We got the stage plot. I'm looking at it. And it's like, what? I'm like, you have to be a track runner to run around this stage. I'm like, I'm going to be losing weight, man. I mean, like, if this is like, you're going to have to time me how fast I can. This is a giant donut in the center of a stadium, right? And the reason of the nerves that you mentioned is because it lasted about one song. But before the show, it was kind of like, you perform a specific way your whole life. And which is, especially for us, it's like a military, you're projecting, you're going, there are 4 flanks here, right? 4 guys on stage plus the drummer, holds down the bass, and then we attack, right? So that means you focus your energy on a certain part of the audience. And we all know that where we need to be, so we are in balance. So it's never going to happen that we all come to the left side of the stage, because then the right side is not getting attention.
Right, yeah.
So the point is that you kind of project so everybody's getting attention, everybody's entertained. There is a connection to every part of this arena. And when you're doing that for decades, right, and especially we got pretty good at that, right? That's our game. I don't have to look at the other guys and know exactly where they are, right?
Yeah.
And we didn't choreograph. I just know where they are. And now you're going to be on a circular stage. And you're
like,
fire your own direction.
Yeah.
Right. And there are people in the pit inside the circle. So there are people in front of me and behind me. And so the whole idea was that, man, how are we going to do what we do? How are we going to project that energy? Who you make eye contact with? Like, I don't even know where to look. And so the first song, we walk on stage and we were like, man, well, let's see what happens. Second part of this is because it's a stage like that, you can't have props. Right. Because you can't get it to the stage because the audience is around, right? So it's pretty much, this is your opportunity to show if your band can be a band without the fires and the lasers, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's you naked. Let's see what you got, kind of, right? And so, we walk out on stage, which is okay for us. We played a million shows, but we walk on stage, and somewhere halfway in the first song, we all kind of looked at each other from the distance. And everyone was like, okay, we got this, man. And then it was no problem. It gets your attention because it's different. It's very different from what you're used to. But one song in, we were like, oh man, this no problem.
I love it.
We do what we do. It's okay.
I love it. Zoltan Bathory, thank you so much for hanging tonight, man. Congrats on the deluxe edition release of Afterlife. Congrats on this incredible song with DMX, man. We're going to be playing it a lot on Loudwire Nights, and we got to have you back on the show before or after you make it to space. So that's going to be the next.
Yeah. All right.
That's going to be the next
Astronaut
topic,
wings
man.
coming. Thank you.
That wraps up this episode of Loudwire Nights on Demand. Stay caught up with everything happening in the world of rock and metal on the Loudwire app and at loudwire.com.